just give you a context of Unilever in India, one of the oldest companies that set up shop in India, uh, greater than $10 billion, the second largest Unilever company for Unilever around the world. Absolute institution in terms of the way that they approach marketing. India, 1.5 billion people. India has, if you were to round off 1 billion in India, that 400 million it would be the third largest country in the world. So that's the scale, and I think a lot of people don't realize that
Mm.
the difference in scale, right? And so then 29 different official languages, dialects, so many different states. If you were to look at it from marketing standpoint, to be able to serve 700 million consumers around the country across every single consumer segment would be like a logistical nightmare, logistical consumer marketing nightmare, so to speak, right? But growing up, my first job being there, I was exposed to this very, very early on. So one of the things that we would learn very early on is to not depend on your anecdotal experience of lived experience of what you see as sort of your consumer truth, because it is almost literally impossible for a human being to experience 1 billion people, or no matter what sample you take, and get a subjective valuation of that. Now, I mean, you could say that about 60 million in France as well, but it's easier for someone in France to say, I think maybe in 30 years of meeting different consumers in France, I kind of am an expert on France. So maybe I can talk about it. And France is still a big country, but there's no way you can do that in India, and you shouldn't do that in India. Let me give you some examples. That I worked in some very interesting categories. I worked in household care. I worked in with diaper brands, etc. So if you speak to anyone from India, they'd say, in India everybody has household help. So it doesn't really matter who you're marketing to, because they go and buy the household dishes, and therefore it doesn't really matter what ads you make. You need to make it for them. The truth is, at least this is about 10 years back, so the data is a little dated, but the penetration of household care, or the penetration data, showed that not more than 10% of the households had household help. Everybody else did the work themselves, but 10% is still 150 million. So for a person who's growing up in a city, they may not have seen beyond the 150 million, not even beyond 10 million. A lot of people feel like all their friends have iPhones. That's just 4% of the country. So very early on, I learned to trust the data and take decisions on that data.